There are moments in history when two teachings, separated by centuries, cultures, and cosmologies, converge as if they were echoes of the same source. This does not happen by coincidence. Human consciousness, when observed through both ancient civilizations and modern scientific discoveries, appears to follow a universal architecture, an invisible geometry that shapes experience, perception, and what we call reality. It is in this intersection between the ancient and the modern, the mythical and the verifiable, that two influential figures emerge. Thoth, the Hermetic master and guardian of knowledge, and Jesus, the master of Christ consciousness. Although separated by millennia, both revealed the same fundamental truth. Reality is created through consciousness, and liberation begins within. Before we go deeper, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. This simple action strengthens the collective field of consciousness we are expanding together. Every new person who joins this journey amplifies this vibration and supports this movement of awakening. Thoth and Jesus are not merely religious or mythical characters. They represent two paradigms of understanding reality. Thoth describes Hermetic principles, natural laws governing mind, vibration, and the correspondence between dimensions. Jesus teaches in parables and symbolic language that, when read with clarity, reveal the same foundation. Human consciousness is the bridge between the visible and the invisible. Modern science, especially neuroscience and quantum physics, now approaches the edges of this mystery. Research on the observer effect, neural coherence, and perception shows that we do not simply react to the world. We build it internally according to our mental and emotional state. When the ancients said, "The kingdom is within you," or "all is mind," they were describing this same mechanism. Reality emerges first in consciousness and only then appears in the physical world. This video is therefore not just a spiritual analysis, it is a map. A guide to help you understand how these two ancient traditions describe, each in their own language, the same architecture of existence, and, more importantly, how to apply these truths in your daily life to heal, manifest, and consciously choose your timeline. As we move forward, remember, you are not here by chance. Something within you is ready for what comes next. To understand why Thoth and Jesus insist that truth resides within us, we must look at something modern psychology reveals with remarkable precision. Everything we perceive in the external world first passes through internal filters. The human mind does not see reality as it is. It sees as it has been conditioned to interpret. This means that your experience of the world is, inevitably, a reflection of your inner state. And this is why both masters pointed in the same direction. Turn inward. When Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you," he was not referring exclusively to religious faith. He was describing a state of alignment between emotion, thought, and presence, a state where consciousness stops reacting mechanically and begins creating from clarity. Similarly, when Thoth instructed his disciples to seek the inner light, he was not speaking of a mystical phenomenon separate from the human mind, but of the capacity to perceive reality without the distortions of fear, conditioning, or psychological defense. Neuroscience calls this metacognition, the ability to observe your own thoughts without becoming identified with them. This state of awareness is precisely what the ancient masters called light, because where there is consciousness, the darkness of illusion dissolves. Ignorance, in both traditions, is not a lack of information, but a lack of perception. A mind may be full of data and still remain deeply unconscious of itself. Thus, in both paths, the first step to escaping illusion is to develop an inner gaze capable of distinguishing automatic thoughts from genuine intuition, inherited fears from real limits, and social conditioning from authentic choice. Once you realize that many of your daily conflicts are not external but internal projections, something shifts. Reality becomes lighter, less rigid, less threatening. Here lies one of the most important revelations shared by both masters. Light triumphs over darkness, not by fighting it, but by revealing it. Just as a dark room is not filled with darkness, but simply lacks light, the human mind is not naturally malevolent. It is simply unilluminated. As awareness expands, fear stops being your compass. Life ceases to appear as an obstacle and begins to reveal itself as a field of possibility. And this movement does not depend on belief, but on presence. The more aware you become, the more clearly you see that the external world always mirrors the internal state. To observe the first parallels between Thoth and Jesus is to encounter a truth that has survived millennia. The idea that the reality we experience begins within. This is not a metaphor, nor a poetic spiritual image. It is an ontological statement, a description of how human existence operates. Jesus expresses this directly. The kingdom of God is within you. See Luke 17:21. Thoth teaches the same principle, though in symbolic hermetic language. What you seek is within you. Turn inward, and you will find the light. Placed side by side, these teachings form a spiritual map. Jesus speaks of the kingdom, Thoth speaks of the light, but both point toward the same inner source of expanded perception. This inner dimension is what psychology calls self-awareness, what neuroscience studies as metacognition, and what modern spirituality names awakening. Different languages for the same shift, the ability to observe your own mind and, by doing so, transform how you perceive reality. Jesus, by saying the kingdom is within, invites a change in perceptual center. Thoth, by guiding seekers to the inner light, instructs them to dissolve unconscious patterns. This leads us to the next convergence. Light overcomes darkness effortlessly. Jesus. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. Thoth. The light always triumphs over darkness. Seek the light and the shadows will fade. Both describe darkness not as an opposing force, but as the absence of awareness. This understanding connects with modern neuroscience. When awareness expands, fear diminishes, neural coherence increases, and old emotional patterns begin to dissolve. Thoth called this igniting the inner flame. Jesus called it knowing the truth. Both traditions point to the same mechanism of liberation. Consciousness frees. Jesus. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Thoth. He who seeks knowledge lights the flame that will grant him freedom. They are describing perception, not information, as the path to liberation. And this is just the beginning of their convergence. As we move deeper into the parallels between Thoth and Jesus, we encounter one of their most transformative convergences, the idea that the mind creates reality. Though expressed in different languages, both masters describe consciousness as the generating center of human experience. And this aligns strikingly with what modern quantum physics is beginning to show. Jesus makes this principle explicit. If you have faith, whatever you ask for in prayer, believing, you will receive. Here, reality responds to inner conviction. Faith is not passive hope, but a coherent vibrational state. Thoth teaches the same principle in Hermetic language. All is mind. The universe is mental. Mind, in this context, refers to the vibrational matrix from which form emerges. Placed side by side, these teachings reveal a profound truth. We do not live in the world. We live in the interpretation our consciousness constructs. Quantum physics shows that the observer influences the behavior of particles. Psychology shows that beliefs shape perception. Neuroscience shows that emotional states reorganize the brain. Jesus called this faith. Thoth called it mentalism. Science calls it the internal model of reality. This leads us to the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. Jesus expresses the same idea in different words. On earth as it is in heaven. He describes the alignment between the external world and higher consciousness. Both teachings assert that the outer world mirrors the inner world, and here we arrive at the emotional force that disrupts this alignment. Fear. Jesus repeatedly says, "Do not fear." Thoth declares, "Fear is the bondage of the mind. Free yourself from its shadow." Fear contracts the field of awareness. It reduces vision, dims intuition, and triggers automatic patterns. Modern science concurs. Fear activates survival mode neurology, narrowing the perceptual field. For both masters, fear is not just discomfort. It is the mechanism that sustains illusion. Liberation comes through reconnecting with the higher self. Jesus calls it the Father. Thoth calls it the one light. Jesus, I and the Father are one. Thoth, unify with your inner light, and you shall become the one. Both point to a higher identity beyond the ego, from which reality can be perceived clearly. And when this inner unification occurs, your world begins to change, not because the external changes first, but because your perception transforms, and everything reorganizes around the consciousness that observes it. This is where the path truly begins. As we deepen our exploration of the parallels between Thoth and Jesus, another convergence emerges with striking clarity. Awakening is a choice, and only those who truly wish to see, actually see. Jesus states, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." He speaks not of physical ears, but of inner readiness, a vibrational openness. Thoth echoes this principle. Only those who are prepared will hear the voice of the light. Modern psychology confirms this. Human beings perceive only what their emotional state can hold. Beliefs, traumas, and inherited patterns filter perception long before logic enters the scene. This leads us to another profound convergence. Death is not the end. Jesus teaches, "Whoever believes in me, though he die, shall live." Thoth declares, "You are not the body. Life is eternal. Death is but a door." Both describe death as transition, not extinction. Science, though cautious, has begun touching this frontier. Research on consciousness beyond the brain suggests that perception may exist independently of physical structures. This aligns with what both ancient traditions declared. Consciousness continues, and yet, both masters warn that forces exist which keep awareness dimmed. Jesus speaks of the blind leading the blind, of spiritual blindness, and of the rulers of this world. Thoth speaks of the children of the shadows. These are not monsters or literal beings, but fields of influence, psychological, emotional, cultural, that sustain unconsciousness. But both masters affirm the same truth. Darkness cannot resist light. Jesus, the darkness has not overcome it. Thoth, light always triumphs. And this is where your practice becomes essential. English translation of the vibrational passage. The affirmations you write, in the comments or in your private journal, are more than words. They are vibrational codes. Writing, reading, and repeating them creates an energetic circuit that reprograms your mind and anchors a new timeline into your field. This is why I invite you to comment, not merely to support the video, but to nourish the collective stream of consciousness. It is an anchoring exercise. Daily repetition transforms vibration into identity. So if you wish to seal this understanding now, write, here, or privately, "I consciously choose the frequency that creates my world." Repeat this sentence over the next days, aloud or silently. Let it become the soundtrack of your energy field. Because each time you speak it, the universe rearranges itself around that coherence, and everything out of alignment begins to dissolve, naturally, effortlessly. When we understand that awakening is a choice, that inner light dissolves shadows, and that consciousness continues beyond the physical experience, we finally enter one of the most practical and least discussed dimensions of the teachings of Jesus and Thoth, the real process of awakening. Not the poetic version, but the internal transformation that changes perception, physiology, vibration, and ultimately, the way a human being experiences reality. Contrary to popular belief, awakening is not a sudden event. It is a gradual unfolding in which perception stops operating on autopilot and begins to see the world with increasing clarity. And this transformation, which today is studied by neuroscientists, contemplative researchers, and transpersonal psychologists, appears in remarkable detail in the words of both masters. Jesus speaks of a perceptual shift that changes the entire way the human organism processes reality. If your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. Matthew 6:22. Here, eye does not refer to literal vision, but to the quality of consciousness. A clear eye means clean perception, a mind free from distortion, the ability to see beyond emotional filters. When perception clears, the body is full of light, meaning the biology responds. Thoth describes the same phenomenon with symbolic precision. When man awakens the inner light, his centers open like flowers in the sun. Hermetic teachings refer to these centers as portals of perception and energy, what today correlates with neuroendocrine systems, emotional circuits, and neurological networks. This is where spirituality and science meet. Studies show that states of inner clarity reduce amygdala activation, fear, and increase neural coherence between regions responsible for empathy, presence, and decision-making. Real awakening has physiological markers. Breathing becomes deeper and more rhythmic, vagal tone increases, intuitive sensitivity expands. The brain shifts more frequently into alpha and theta states. This is what Thoth means when he says, "The heart becomes lighter and the mind becomes quieter." And what Jesus echoes with, "My peace I give you, not as the world gives." John 14:27. Both describe a measurable internal state, not a religious emotion. Peace becomes a mode of consciousness. Yet there is an even deeper layer. Awakening changes the individual's relationship with time. This subtle teaching appears in both traditions. Jesus says, "Do not worry about tomorrow," not as moral advice, but as perceptual training. He is teaching the mind to return to the present, the only real place where consciousness operates. Thoth affirms, "Time is an illusion of the mind that has not yet awakened." To him, expanded beings perceive time as fluid, not linear. Today, neuroscience agrees. When the mind enters deep presence, subjective time changes, moments expand, anxiety decreases, clarity increases. Life stops feeling rushed and begins to feel aware. This shift has three key symptoms, the same in both traditions, even with different languages. 1. Increased sensitivity to truth. Jesus describes this as hearing the voice of the Father. Thoth describes it as following the vibration of the light. In modern terms, perception becomes refined enough to feel what is aligned or misaligned. 2. Reduced mental noise. The ego loses strength because awareness grows. Inner narratives lose emotional dominance. 3. Heightened intuitive clarity. Not as superstition, but as a consequence of a more regulated nervous system and expanded neural integration. All three symptoms appear consistently in studies of deep meditation, mystical experiences, and expanded states of consciousness. And here is where the process becomes truly transformative. As perception elevates, the individual's energetic field changes as well. Jesus speaks of this as inner authority. "Whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and even greater." John 14:12. Thoth describes it as expansion of the luminous field. When light grows within man, his field moves mountains. Both are describing energetic influence, something modern research explores through human electromagnetic coherence and psychophysiology. As the mind stabilizes, the field stabilizes. As emotion aligns, energy aligns. As consciousness expands, reality reorganizes. This is why both masters insist on a critical truth. Awakening does not happen only within. It reveals itself outwardly. It is not philosophy. It is physiology, psychology, spirituality, and vibrational physics operating together. And this understanding prepares us for the next stage of the journey. The subtle forces, internal and external, that pull a seeker away from awakening, and how to recognize them with clarity, without fear and without superstition. As we deepen the meaning of awakening, we inevitably reach a delicate yet essential point. There are forces that act to keep human consciousness asleep, but these forces are not what popular imagination tends to picture. Neither Jesus nor Thoth speaks of external monsters influencing humanity. Both describe, with surgical precision, internal mechanisms and invisible structures of conditioning that pull individuals away from their own center. Jesus approaches this theme with striking clarity. He says, "If your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness." Matthew 6:23. Here once again, eye means perception. Perception contaminated by envy, distraction, comparison, fear. Internal darkness that distorts reality. Thoth, in turn, describes the same phenomenon using hermetic language. The children of the shadows walk within minds that sleep. They feed on disorder and forgetfulness. These are not literal entities, but systems of unconsciousness that gain strength when we disconnect from our inner light. Modern psychology would call this automatic patterns, defense mechanisms, emotional polarization, cognitive dissonance, trauma-driven perception. Neuroscience would call it amygdala hyperactivity, rumination, nervous system dysregulation, negativity bias, and threat bias. Spirituality would call it shadow, density, disconnection from presence. All these perspectives, though different, describe the same movement. Consciousness loses lucidity and starts reacting to the world instead of creating it. Jesus warns about this when he says, "The ruler of this world has blinded the minds of many." The term ruler here does not refer to a physical being, but to a collective force. Cultural conditioning, the collective ego, the river of distraction that governs society. Thoth uses a very similar analogy. The mind that does not watch becomes a dwelling for shadows. Shadow, in Hermetic tradition, is everything that operates without awareness. Repressed fears, unconscious desires, inherited impulses, unintegrated trauma. Both masters say, each in their own words, if you do not direct your mind, something else will direct it for you. And here lies a crucial point, perhaps one of the most important in this entire teaching. These forces that divert us are not evil. They are automatic. They are ancient survival mechanisms of the human brain. But without awareness, they become prisons. For example, fear that protects you from real danger is healthy, but conditioned fear that interprets everything as threat becomes a prison. Comparison that helps you evaluate context is useful. Chronic comparison that destroys self-esteem becomes a shadow. Discomfort that signals the need for change is wise. Chronic resistance that blocks all transformation becomes a saboteur. Jesus describes these states as spiritual blindness. Seeing, they do not see. Hearing, they do not hear. Thoth describes them as vibrational density. He who sinks into density forgets he is light. At their core, both point to one phenomenon: loss of presence. Loss of presence happens when the mind is so occupied with narratives, fears, memories, projections, and automatic reactions that it stops perceiving life occurring now. Science explains this as hyperactivity of the default mode network, the part of the brain that generates internal stories. The more active it is, the farther we are from the present. Spirituality explains it as disconnection from the higher self, the silent observer. In practice, it manifests as anxiety, impulsiveness, attachment, lack of clarity, difficulty sensing intuition, the feeling of living on autopilot. But both Jesus and Thoth reveal something liberating. Presence dissolves any force of deviation. Jesus states, "Watch." Mark 13:37. To watch is to be conscious, to observe your thoughts without becoming them. Thoth says, "Keep your light lit, and no shadow will touch you." Both affirm that simple self-awareness is sufficient to dissolve any unconscious pattern. There is no need to fight, only to illuminate. This is why, when consciousness awakens, old patterns begin to disappear naturally. Addictions, compulsions, fears, toxic relationships, repeated self-sabotage. What once seemed impossible to overcome dissolves on its own, because what held you depended entirely on your unconscious state. Light does not fight shadow, it reveals. This is the culmination of the convergence between Jesus and Thoth. There is no force in the world capable of imprisoning a being who is present. The only possible prison is unconsciousness. And presence, when cultivated continuously, is the beginning of true awakening. Up to this point, we have understood the architecture of awakening according to Jesus and Thoth. But there is an essential question that must be answered before we can complete this journey. How do we actually live this in real, concrete, daily life? Both Jesus and Thoth taught elevated principles, but they also offered deeply practical instructions, simple actions that reprogram the mind, refine perception, and stabilize consciousness. And here we reach the most transformative part of this entire message: applied spirituality, where neuroscience, Hermeticism, and Christ consciousness converge. Let us begin with an essential point. The mind needs repetition in order to awaken. Thoth states, man becomes that which he continuously contemplates. In other words, the mind literally shapes itself according to the images it holds. Jesus expresses the same principle when he says, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Matthew 6:21. Whatever you give your attention to becomes your dominant vibration, and your dominant vibration becomes your reality. Neuroscience calls this directed neuroplasticity. The brain reorganizes its circuits based on what you mentally, emotionally, and energetically practice. This leads us to the first fundamental practice shared by both masters. 1. Mastering focus. The human mind is like a prism. Whatever it focuses on expands. This is not a metaphor, it is physiology. When you focus on fear, you activate the amygdala, adrenaline, cortisol, and contraction. When you focus on presence, you activate the prefrontal cortex, clarity, vagal regulation, and expansion. Thoth instructed his students, "Fix your mind upon the light, and the light will awaken you." Jesus teaches the same principle in different words. Seek first the kingdom. In other words, place your awareness at the center, and everything else will align. Modern science confirms it. What you mentally practice becomes your dominant state, and your dominant state shapes your reality, your choices, and your paths. 2. Stabilizing the body as a vehicle of consciousness. Here we reach a point rarely discussed but present in both teachings. Without a stabilized body, consciousness cannot expand. Jesus repeatedly said, "Peace be with you." This phrase is not merely spiritual, it is physiological. Peace is a state of the nervous system. Thoth said, "The body must be calm like a still lake so that the light may reflect upon it." Today, research shows that deep breathing regulates the nervous system. Vagal tone determines emotional stability. A calm body allows access to subtler brainwave states, and states of peace generate coherence in the heart's electromagnetic field. In other words, Peace is not the result. It is the foundation of awakening. 3. Silencing internal noise. Both masters understood that the greatest obstacle to awakening is not the external world. It is internal noise. Jesus sought intentional silence. He withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Thoth instructed, "Enter the silence, and you will hear the voice of the light." Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of reactivity. Science calls this a metacognitive state, seeing thoughts without becoming them. This is the place where intuition arises, where insights appear, where reality reveals itself without distortion. 4. Aligning emotion and intention. Jesus called this faith. Thoth called it vibration. Both understood that intention without emotion does not manifest, and emotion without intention becomes chaos. Genuine manifestation, not the superficial version, arises when intention, mind, and emotion, energy field, enter coherence. Physics calls this resonance. Biology calls it cardiac coherence. Spirituality calls it aligned presence. And this is exactly where the practice you want your audience to embody emerges. I consciously choose the frequency that creates my world. This phrase acts as a command, a point of internal alignment. It functions like an internal reorganizer. 5. Creating micro-habits of lucidity. This is where integration truly happens. Thoth taught internal discipline. One moment of light in each hour will illuminate the entire day. Jesus taught continuous vigilance, watch and pray. Today, we call these micro-meditations, conscious pauses, anchoring breaths, internal vibrational check-ins. These small interruptions in the automatic program reopen the portal of awareness, and this changes everything. Micro-habits reprogram your mind for presence, and presence, as we have already seen, dissolves shadow automatically. 6. Recognizing and honoring the higher self. This is the final point, and perhaps the most important. Jesus said, "The kingdom is within you." Thoth said, "What you seek is within you." Both affirm that the higher self is not distant or separate. It is waiting for you to create space. When you operate from this place, decisions become clear, relationships align, opportunities appear, and life stops being conflict and starts becoming flow. The higher self is not an abstract idea. It is the part of you Jesus called the Father and Thoth called the Light, and living connected to that part is literally living awake. As the seeker practices focus, presence, inner silence, emotional coherence, and reconnection with the higher self, something extraordinary begins to occur. Something that both Thoth and Jesus mention, but which only recently science has begun to investigate: the ability of consciousness to alter its timeline. This is not a mystical metaphor. It is a convergence that appears in Hermeticism, Christ consciousness, and modern physics, each using its own language but pointing to the same phenomenon. Reality responds to the dominant vibration, and when vibration changes, the path changes with it. Thoth describes this process with poetic precision. The man who changes his vibration changes his destiny. For him, destiny is not fixed. It is a trajectory shaped by the quality of the individual's energetic field. Jesus expresses this same principle in a different tone when he says, "Let it be done to you according to your faith." Matthew 9:29. Here, faith does not mean religious belief, but vibrational coherence, the internal state that defines what is possible in your experience. Both are saying that external reality is malleable, not arbitrary, responsive. And this leads us to a fascinating point. Modern science is beginning to confirm that the brain does not live in a single reality, but in probabilities. Quantum physics describes the universe as a field of possibilities, where particles exist in multiple states until observation stabilizes them, the famous collapse of the wave function. Neuroscience describes perception as a predictive process. The brain does not see the world directly. It predicts, interprets, and selects meaning. In other words, reality is collaborative. The mind interprets, the world responds. Thoth called this the law of vibration. That which vibrates within you attracts the corresponding form. Jesus called this knowing the truth. The truth shall set you free. John 8:32. Free from what? From a limited perception, from a restricted timeline, from a small world. Because when consciousness changes, the world changes with it. But how does this happen in practice? Both masters describe 3 stages, and science confirms each of them. 1. Perception determines possibility. Jesus said, "If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes." Mark 9:23. Thoth said, "What you can conceive in light, you can make real." Science calls this possibility bias. If the brain does not perceive something as possible, it literally does not look for paths to achieve it. This is why awakening expands perception. You begin to see doors you didn't know were there. 2. Vibration determines direction. Every emotion contains an electrical and magnetic signature. This is not esotericism. It is physics and bioelectromagnetism. Fear states contract the field, reducing possibilities. Present states expand the field, increasing possibilities. Jesus embodied this coherence when he said, "My peace I give to you." Peace is expansion. Expansion creates pathways. Thoth described the same dynamic. The light within you draws paths of light. Same law, expressed in dual form. 3. Aligned action anchors the new timeline. This is the point most people overlook. It is not enough to feel. It is not enough to perceive. You must act in alignment with the frequency you choose. Jesus said, "You will know them by their fruits." Fruits are actions, concrete choices that anchor vibration into the world. Thoth said, "Vibration that does not act returns to its former state." Physics says the same. Systems that do not receive coherent energy return to their habitual pattern. Neuroscience also confirms this. Without repetition, the brain returns to old circuits. This is why daily practice is essential. It keeps the frequency stable until life reorganizes around it. And here arises the central element of advanced awakening, the ability to consciously choose your timeline. This choice is not mental. It is vibrational. It is perceptual. It is behavioral. It is consistent. It is the moment when you stop being a product of the world and become a co-author of your reality. Jesus called this walking in the light. Thoth called it ascending in vibration. Physics calls it collapse of possibilities. Psychology calls it active creation of the future. Modern spirituality calls it alignment. And everything begins with a single vibrational question. Who do you choose to be right now? Because that choice reorganizes everything. If you choose to be fear, your timeline contracts. If you choose to be presence, your timeline reorganizes. If you choose to be truth, your perception expands. If you choose to be light, reality responds with coherence. And that is why both Jesus and Thoth always place the power of transformation within. Because that is where reality is born. That is where the timeline shifts. That is where consciousness chooses the world it will experience. We have arrived at the end of this journey, but the most important point is not in what you heard. It is in what you will do with this knowledge from this moment forward. Jesus and Thoth, separated by centuries, cultures, and entirely different traditions, pointed to the same direction. The reality you live is not imposed by the world. It is born from the way you perceive, vibrate, and choose to exist. And this leads us to the most decisive moment of this entire message. The understanding that awakening is a personal responsibility. It is not destiny. It is not privilege. It is not luck. It is choice. And this choice is renewed every single day. Jesus made it clear that each person is called to cultivate inner lucidity before attempting to transform the world. Thoth affirmed that the seeker must master his own light before understanding the external reality. Both are saying, illusion does not break from the outside in, it breaks from the inside out. And to escape the illusion of fear, of separation, of the wounded ego, of the scattered mind, of emotional conditioning, you must make 3 essential movements that synthesize all the teachings of these 2 masters. 1. You must remember who you are. Not what the world said you are, not what your history shaped you into, not what your fears suggest, but what you feel when you become silent. The higher self is not a philosophical idea. It is your unclouded consciousness, without conditioning, without noise, without fragmentation. Jesus called this abundant life. Thoth called it inner ascension. Science calls it integrated coherence. It is the state in which you stop perceiving yourself as a separate being and begin to recognize yourself as consciousness expanding through experience. 2. You must become the guardian of your vibration, because vibration is the true language of the universe. It shapes your perceptions, your choices, your internal chemistry, your relationships, your paths, your timeline. Jesus taught this by saying that every tree is known by its fruit. Every choice vibrates and generates consequences. Thoth taught that each person carries a field, and that field is a magnet, attracting realities that match it. If your vibration drops, your life follows that drop. If your vibration rises, your life reorganizes itself to match it. This is why awakening requires gentle discipline, not harsh effort, but consistency. Each day you choose expansion or contraction, presence or distraction, truth or illusion, light or shadow, and that choice, repeated, creates destiny. 3. You must act as someone who has already awakened, because knowledge without action returns to forgetfulness. Light without practice returns to shadow. Consciousness without expression fades. It is not enough to understand. You must live it. And living awakening means assuming responsibility for your energy, breathing consciously, choosing your words, refining your intentions, moving away from what destroys, drawing closer to what expands, protecting your peace, listening to your intuition, acting with lucidity even when no one is watching. This is how illusion loses power. This is how reality changes. This is how awakening becomes irreversible. But there is something even greater. Something that connects everything you heard until this moment. True freedom is born when you realize there is nothing to conquer, only something to remember. Jesus and Thoth were not trying to create followers. They were trying to create conscious beings. Beings capable of living with clarity in a world that constantly attempts to dim that clarity. And now you stand before the same decision, not an external decision, an internal one. Who do you choose to be from now on? Who do you choose to be when no one is watching? Who do you choose to be when life tests you? From this point forward, this knowledge is not just content, it is code. It must be lived inside you. And to seal this understanding, here is the closing passage you asked to include. The moment where spirituality, vibration, and practice unite. If this message resonated with you, share it. Help expand this field of consciousness, because every person who awakens illuminates hundreds of others. Leave your comment, your vibration, your testimony, not just for engagement, but because your energy is part of this collective construction. And remember, the highest timeline is not a place in the future. It is a state of being, available here and now. May you walk in peace, in clarity, and in love, until the next awakening.